Looking at the owner one last time in tears, he left after being chained for life. The rusty chain bit into his raw skin, a constant reminder of his confinement. He tugged at it, the familiar ache in his shoulder flaring with each desperate pull. It was no use. He was tethered to this spot, a patch of barren earth beside the decaying porch of a house that had long forgotten the meaning of home. He was forgotten too. He was just a puppy, barely a year old, when the chain became his world. Before that, there were fleeting memories of warmth, of clumsy tumbles with his littermates, of a human hand briefly stroking his fur. But those memories were fading, replaced by the harsh realities of his existence. Hunger gnawed at his belly, a constant companion to the loneliness that gnawed at his soul. The food, when it came, was meager and sporadic. Sometimes it was a stale crust of bread, sometimes a mold-infested scrap from the man's plate. Often it was nothing at all. He would watch with longing as squirrels scampered past, their bellies full, their lives a symphony of freedom he could only dream of. The days bled into one another, an endless cycle of hunger, thirst, and despair. The sun beat down mercilessly in the summer, turning his patch of earth into an oven. In the winter, the icy wind whipped through his thin coat, chilling him to the bone. He had no shelter, no comfort, no one to care. The man, his owner, was a shadowy figure, often reeking of alcohol and anger. Sometimes he would stumble out onto the porch, his voice slurring curses that the dog didn't understand but felt nonetheless. There were days when the man's anger would spill over, and the dog would cower, whimpering, as a kick or a blow landed on his already battered body. He had learned to fear the sound of the man's footsteps, the creak of the porch swing, the clinking of the bottle against the man's teeth. These sounds were the harbingers of pain, of another day lost to the misery of his existence. Yet, even in the depths of his despair, a spark of hope flickered within him. It was a faint ember, fueled by the distant memory of kindness, by the innate longing for connection that burned in every living creature. He would watch the birds soaring overhead, their songs a melody of freedom, and he would dream of a day when he too could break free from his chains, when he too could know the joy of running, of playing, of simply being a dog. But for now he was trapped, a prisoner of neglect and indifference. He was alone, forgotten, chained to a life of suffering. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, he curled into himself, his whimpers lost in the wind, his tears mingling with the dust. Mrs. Eleanor Peterson, a woman whose heart was as warm as her freshly baked apple pies, lived in the house next door. She was a widow, her children grown and flown, her days filled with the quiet routines of tending her garden, knitting scarves for the local shelter, and watching the world go by from her porch swing. It was from this vantage point that she first noticed the dog. At first, it was just a fleeting glimpse, a flash of matted fur, a whimper carried on the wind. But as the days turned into weeks, she began to pay more attention. She saw the emaciated frame, the raw skin beneath the rusty chain, the haunted look in the dog's eyes. She saw the neglect, the cruelty, the utter despair. Eleanor was not a woman to turn a blind eye to suffering. She had lived a long life, a life filled with its share of joys and sorrows, and she knew that compassion was the greatest gift one could offer another. And so, she decided to act. It started with small gestures. She would leave a bowl of water near the fence, watching from her window as the dog lapped it up with desperate thirst. She would toss scraps of food over the fence, her heart aching at the ravenous hunger she witnessed. She would talk to the dog in a soft, soothing voice, offering words of comfort and kindness that he couldn't understand but felt nonetheless. With each passing day, Eleanor's concern grew. She tried to talk to the man, the dog's owner, but he would just grunt in response, his eyes glazed with indifference. She called the local animal shelter, but they were overwhelmed with cases and could offer little help. She felt helpless, frustrated, her heart heavy with the weight of the dog's suffering. One evening, as she sat on her porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, she made a decision. She couldn't stand by and watch this creature suffer any longer. She would find a way to help, even if it meant putting herself at risk. The next morning, armed with a pair of bolt cutters and a trembling heart, Eleanor approached the fence separating her property from the man's. She took a deep breath, her gaze meeting the dog's. In his eyes, she saw a flicker of hope, a spark of trust that ignited a fire within her. "Don't you worry, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her own heart. "I'm here now. I'm going to help you." The rusty chain yielded to the bolt cutters with a groan, a sound that echoed like a trumpet blast in the stillness of the morning. The dog, hesitant at first, crept forward, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Eleanor knelt down, her hand outstretched, her voice a gentle murmur. "It's okay, sweetheart," she crooned. "Come here. I won't hurt you." He took a tentative step, then another, his tail giving a hesitant wag. He sniffed her hand cautiously. Then, with a soft whine, he leaned into her touch, his head nudging her palm. Tears welled up in Eleanor's eyes as she felt the bony frame beneath his matted fur, the tremors that racked his body. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered, her heart breaking. "You're safe now. Promise." Leading him gently, she guided him into her house, her own haven of peace and warmth. He flinched at the unfamiliar surroundings, his senses overwhelmed by the scents of baking bread and lavender soap. He cowered at the creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. But Eleanor's presence, her gentle touch, her soothing voice, slowly began to calm his fear. She made him a bed in the laundry room, a soft nest of blankets in a quiet corner. She brought him a bowl of warm milk, watching as he lapped it up with a desperate hunger that brought tears to her eyes. She bathed him gently, wincing at the sores and scabs that covered his skin, the matted fur that clung to his emaciated frame. As she tended to his wounds, she discovered the bullet lodged in his shoulder, the misshapen elbow that spoke of a life lived in pain. She called the veterinarian, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. She called the police, reporting the neglect and abuse she had witnessed. When the veterinarian arrived, the dog cowered in the corner, his eyes wide with fear. But the vet, a kind woman with a gentle touch, spoke to him softly, coaxing him out with a treat and a reassuring smile. She examined him carefully, her brow furrowed with concern. "He's severely malnourished," she said, her voice grave. "And that elbow, it looks like an old injury never properly treated. He's going to need surgery." Eleanor nodded, her heart sinking, but she also felt a surge of determination. This dog, this creature who had known nothing but suffering, deserved a chance at a better life. She would do everything in her power to give him that chance. As the vet administered the first round of medications, the dog whimpered, his body trembling. But Eleanor was there, stroking his fur, whispering words of comfort. And slowly, as the medicine began to take effect, he relaxed, his breathing becoming more even, his eyes closing in exhausted sleep. Eleanor watched over him, her heart filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. She knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she also knew that she wasn't alone in this journey. She had the vet, the support of the kind officers who had taken the man away, and most importantly, she had the unwavering spirit of this dog, this survivor who had endured so much and yet still retained a spark of hope in his eyes. The days that followed were a blur of veterinary visits, medications, and sleepless nights. The X-rays revealed the extent of the damage. A bullet lodged in his shoulder, a fractured elbow that had healed improperly, leaving him with a permanent limp. The vet explained that the bullet, likely fired from a distance, had miraculously missed any vital organs, but the elbow required surgery to alleviate the pain and improve his mobility. Eleanor watched as they prepped him for the operation, her heart heavy with anxiety. He was so fragile, so vulnerable. She stroked his fur, whispering reassurances she wasn't sure he understood. But as they wheeled him away, she saw a flicker of trust in his eyes, a glimmer of hope that he might finally be free from pain. The surgery was long, a grueling 2 hours that stretched into an eternity for Eleanor. She paced the waiting room, her mind filled with images of him lying on the operating table, his small body battling against the odds. When the vet finally emerged, her face etched with fatigue, but her voice carrying a note of optimism, Eleanor felt a wave of relief wash over her. "The surgery was successful," the vet said, a tired smile gracing her lips. "He's a tough one, that's for sure. He'll need some time to recover, but he should regain full use of his leg." Eleanor spent the next few days by his side, monitoring his recovery, coaxing him to eat, encouraging him to take his first tentative steps. He was still timid, flinching at sudden movements, cowering at the sound of raised voices. The trauma he had endured ran deep, leaving scars that weren't visible on his healing body. Nighttime was the hardest. He would wake from nightmares, his whimpers echoing through the house. Eleanor would rush to his side, holding him close, whispering soothing words until the tremors subsided and he drifted back to sleep. She knew it would take time, patience, and a whole lot of love to help him heal from the wounds that ran deeper than flesh and bone. But amidst the pain and fear, there were glimpses of the dog he was meant to be. He would wag his tail tentatively when she entered the room, his eyes shining with a newfound trust. He would lick her hand gratefully when she offered him a treat, a soft whine escaping his throat. And slowly, ever so slowly, he began to explore his new surroundings, his curiosity overcoming his fear. He discovered the joy of soft blankets, the comfort of a warm lap, the pleasure of a gentle scratch behind the ears. He discovered the taste of ice cream, his eyes widening in delight at the cold sweetness. He discovered the thrill of chasing squirrels in the backyard, his limp becoming less pronounced with each passing day. Eleanor watched his transformation with a mixture of joy and awe. She saw the resilience of his spirit, the unwavering hope that shone through the darkness of his past. She knew that he still had a long way to go, but she also knew that he was no longer alone. He had found a safe haven, a loving heart, a chance to finally be a dog. As the weeks turned into months, the dog, whom Eleanor had named Buddy, blossomed under her care. His coat, once dull and matted, now gleamed with health. His ribs, once starkly visible, were now hidden beneath a layer of muscle. He had gained weight, strength, and a newfound confidence that shone in his eyes. The nightmares became less frequent, the tremors less pronounced. He still flinched at sudden movements, but the fear in his eyes had been replaced by a cautious curiosity. He would follow Eleanor around the house, his tail wagging gently, his presence a constant source of comfort and joy. Eleanor, in turn, found her life enriched by Buddy's presence. The quiet routines of her days were now punctuated by playful barks, by the thud of a happy tail against the floor, by the warm weight of Buddy leaning against her leg as she read a book or knitted a scarf. She had never owned a dog before, but now she couldn't imagine her life without him. She discovered the simple pleasures of taking him for walks in the park, watching him chase butterflies, his limp forgotten in the joy of the moment. She discovered the unconditional love of a dog, a love that asked for nothing in return but a kind word, a gentle touch, a shared moment of connection. One sunny afternoon, as they sat on the porch swing, Eleanor felt a wet nose nudge her hand. She looked down to see Buddy gazing up at her, his eyes filled with an expression she couldn't quite decipher. It was a look of gratitude, of trust, of something akin to love. "You've come a long way, haven't you, Buddy?" she said softly, stroking his fur. He whined softly, licking her hand in response. In that moment, Eleanor knew that she had not only rescued Buddy, but he had rescued her too. He had filled a void in her life, a loneliness she hadn't realized she was carrying. He had reminded her of the simple joys of life, the power of compassion, the healing balm of unconditional love. But as much as she loved Buddy, Eleanor knew that she couldn't give him everything he needed. She was an older woman, her days filled with quiet routines, her energy limited. Buddy was a young dog, full of life and exuberance, yearning for a family, for children to play with, for a home filled with laughter and activity. She made a decision that brought tears to her eyes but a smile to her lips. She would find Buddy a forever home, a home where he could truly thrive. She would find him a family who would love him as much as she did, who would give him the life he deserved. And so, with a heavy heart but a hopeful spirit, Eleanor embarked on a mission to find Buddy the perfect family. She contacted the local animal shelter. She spread the word among her friends and neighbors. She even put up flyers in the local coffee shop. She was determined to find Buddy a home where he would be cherished, where his past would be forgotten, where he could finally live the happy life he so richly deserved. Eleanor's quest to find Buddy a perfect home was not an easy one. She was determined to find just the right family, one that would understand his past, appreciate his gentle spirit, and provide him with the love and attention he craved. She visited several homes, interviewed potential adopters, but none seemed quite right. Some were put off by his limp, others by his timid nature. Some had young children who might be too boisterous for him, others had cats that might trigger his prey drive. Eleanor was beginning to lose hope, fearing that Buddy's past would forever haunt his future. Then, one day, she received a call from a woman named Sarah. Sarah had seen Buddy's picture on a flyer at the local library and had been immediately drawn to his soulful eyes. She had a young son, Ethan, who had been begging for a dog for months, and a spacious backyard perfect for running and playing. Eleanor arranged a meeting at her house. She watched as Sarah and Ethan interacted with Buddy, her heart filled with hope. Ethan, a gentle boy with a shy smile, approached Buddy cautiously, offering him a treat with a trembling hand. Buddy, in turn, seemed drawn to Ethan's gentle nature, wagging his tail tentatively and licking Ethan's hand. Sarah, a single mother with a warm smile and kind eyes, asked Eleanor about Buddy's past, listening intently as Eleanor recounted his story. She didn't shy away from the details of his abuse, nor did she dismiss his emotional scars. Instead, she expressed empathy and understanding, assuring Eleanor that she was prepared to give Buddy the time and patience he needed to heal. As the afternoon progressed, Eleanor felt a growing sense of confidence. Sarah and Ethan were the perfect family for Buddy. They had the space, the time, and most importantly, the love and compassion to help him overcome his past and embrace a brighter future. With a bittersweet mix of sadness and joy, Eleanor agreed to let Buddy go to his new home. She helped Sarah and Ethan pack his belongings, his favorite blanket, his chew toys, his bowl with the chipped rim. She hugged Buddy tightly, whispering words of love and encouragement. "You be a good boy, Buddy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You have a wonderful family now. Go and be happy." As Sarah and Ethan led Buddy away, Eleanor watched from her porch, tears streaming down her face. She knew she would miss him terribly, but she also knew that she had done the right thing. She had given Buddy the greatest gift of all, a loving home, a second chance at happiness. The car ride was a symphony of new smells and sounds for Buddy. He sat in the back seat, his head out the window, the wind ruffling his fur, his senses overwhelmed by the world rushing by. He whined softly, a mixture of anxiety and excitement bubbling within him. Ethan, sitting beside him, offered him a reassuring pat, his small hand resting gently on Buddy's head. "It's okay, boy," he whispered. "We're going home." Home. The word resonated deep within Buddy, stirring a longing he had never dared to acknowledge. He had never known a true home, a place of safety and belonging. He looked at Ethan, at his bright eyes and shy smile, and a flicker of hope ignited within him. When they arrived at the house, a sprawling ranch with a wide porch and a vast backyard, Buddy's tail wagged with anticipation. He sniffed the air, catching the scent of freshly cut grass, of blooming flowers, of another dog, a friendly golden retriever named Max, who greeted him with enthusiastic barks and playful nudges. The first few days were a whirlwind of new experiences. Buddy explored every corner of the house, his nose twitching, his tail wagging. He chased squirrels in the backyard, played tug-of-war with Max, and learned the joy of belly rubs from Ethan. He discovered the comfort of a soft bed in Ethan's room, the warmth of a family dinner, the soothing rhythm of bedtime stories. But old habits died hard. He still flinched at sudden movements, cowered at the sound of raised voices. He would sometimes wake in the night, whimpering from the echoes of nightmares, his body trembling with fear. Sarah and Ethan were patient, understanding. They showered him with love and reassurance, their gentle touch and soothing voices calming his anxieties. They taught him basic commands, their praise a sweet reward for his efforts. They introduced him to new experiences, walks in the park, car rides to the beach, playdates with other dogs. Slowly, Buddy began to shed the layers of fear and mistrust that had cloaked him for so long. He learned to trust, to love, to be a dog. He learned that not all humans were cruel, that not all touches were painful, that not all sounds were harbingers of fear. He blossomed in the warmth of their love, his personality emerging like a butterfly from its chrysalis. He was playful and affectionate, with a mischievous streak that often brought laughter to the house. He was protective of Ethan, his loyal companion, his shadow. He was a part of the family, a cherished member of their pack. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Sarah watching as Ethan read a story to Buddy, a wave of contentment washed over her. She looked at Buddy, curled up at Ethan's feet, his eyes closed, his breathing soft and even. She saw the peace in his posture, the trust in his relaxed features. She knew that he had finally found his forever home, a place where he could truly be himself, a place where he was loved unconditionally. Years passed, seasons turning in their ceaseless cycle, painting the canvas of life with vibrant hues. Buddy, no longer the timid, wounded creature Eleanor had rescued, was now a senior dog, his muzzle frosted with gray, his gait a little slower, but his spirit as bright as ever. He had become a fixture in the neighborhood, a beloved companion to Ethan, now a teenager, and a loyal friend to Max, who had long since crossed the Rainbow Bridge. He was known for his gentle nature, his love of belly rubs, and his penchant for stealing unattended sandwiches from picnic baskets. He had seen Ethan grow from a shy boy to a confident young man, sharing his childhood adventures, his teenage angst, his dreams for the future. He had been there through thick and thin, a constant source of comfort and unconditional love. One warm spring day, as Ethan prepared to leave for college, a bittersweet milestone in their lives, Buddy sensed the undercurrent of sadness in the air. He nuzzled Ethan's hand, his eyes filled with a deep understanding. "I'll miss you, Buddy," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'll be back. Promise." Buddy licked away a tear that escaped Ethan's eye, his tail wagging gently. He knew that life was a journey of change, of comings and goings, of beginnings and endings. But he also knew that the bonds of love, once forged, were unbreakable. And so life went on. Buddy continued his days with Sarah, their companionship a source of mutual comfort and joy. They walked in the park, played fetch in the backyard, shared quiet evenings by the fireplace. He was her shadow, her confidant, her furry soulmate. One day, as they sat on the porch swing, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Sarah felt Buddy's head grow heavy on her lap. She looked down to see his eyes closed, his breathing shallow. She knew that the time had come to say goodbye. With tears streaming down her face, she held him close, whispering words of love and gratitude. "Thank you, Buddy," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for sharing your life with me. You were the best dog a person could ask for." Buddy took one last breath, a sigh that carried the weight of a lifetime of love and loyalty. Then he was gone, his spirit slipping away peacefully, leaving behind a void that would never be filled. Sarah buried him in the backyard, under the old oak tree where he loved to chase squirrels. She placed a simple stone marker on his grave, inscribed with the words, "Buddy, a loyal friend, a loving companion, a true blessing." And as the years turned into decades, the memory of Buddy lived on, a testament to the enduring power of love, the resilience of the spirit, and the profound impact a dog can have on a human life. He was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can blossom, that even the most wounded soul can find healing, and that the love we share with our animal companions is a gift that transcends time and mortality.